Polemic Pool. Here we are again. High five to everyone.
Hey, hi Laura.
All right.
Hello,
Okay.
everybody. We're back together again. We're going to try and have an amazing conversation. And I have my two regulars with me and a wonderful guest as well. This is Laura Casaletto, swimming around again in the Polemic Pool, which is weeded today. Wheated today.
No,
Wheated.
This one
It
has
is
rye.
wheated.
This
It
one
has rye.
It's right. Okay. And on my left, Jerry Bowes.
And I'm glad to be here again on the Polemic Pool. And to my left, Steve Anderson.
Steve Anderson, and I'm happy to be here. And our special guest,
Eric Green.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I appreciate it.
yes,
His
well,
sultry
welcome.
voice caresses the night airwaves every week, every Friday. Oh! Silence that. That was a Japanese lesson. He said 10 is 10, 4 is 4, 14 is 14 in Japanese. Moving on.
Absolutely.
Okay. I believe it's Steve's turn for the topic of discussion. What is that this week?
Yeah, well, what I wanted to discuss with everyone tonight and get your point of views is whether we obsess or we have taken sports to the extreme. If you look at a lot of analogies, verbiage, it's very sports, kind of related stuff. And I'm just wondering if the obsession, I would call it an obsession with sports, is actually detrimental to us as a society, and actually from an individualistic standpoint, it doesn't enhance exploration and intelligent discourse. So I'll just start by saying I see a connection between religion and not being a religious person and sports. There seems to be this kind of team rah 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 kind of deal, and you're either with us and you're on our team or you're not, and people actually dress up in the garb of the team and the team colors and that whole kind of thing. And I think there's a lot of connections between that and religion and how it approaches things. So on that note, hopefully there's enough there that we can just kind of tap into it. And who would like to enter in?
Well, I've got a thought about that. Interesting, the analogy between sports and religion. I would add also political affiliation. You have folks, it's like tribal identity, in-group,
Yes.
out-group, and you have folks looking for something to identify with. And what you'll find is that people who are hardcore sports fans, people who are political partisans, and people who are rabidly or even seriously religious tend to have what they have in common, I think, is that sort of in-group, out-group
Yes.
view, and also sort of a surprise when they say, "Did you watch the game last night?" and you say, "What game?" or "No, I didn't." It's like they're offended that you didn't participate in their thing.
Oh.
And it's the same way with, that miserable insert name of politician here, or the same thing with
How was the sermon at your church, or
Right.
It's that same kind of, yes.
Well, I heard something very interesting today about the openness of politics. That prior to 1870, when you voted, it was a matter of public record, and you usually did it in front of elected the election officials. You didn't necessarily even have a written ballot. You spoke.
Just-
You told them who you were voting
okay.
for,
Oh, okay.
and where you voted. Well, it often was like saloons and bars and stuff like that, and drinking was part of it, and you'd say who you were voting for, and people would shout hooray or booyah, and there was a very masculine, very kind of blood sport kind of quality to it, because fist fights would break out, and it'd be
Wow.
it was very, very dramatic and very
Yeah.
public. And after it went to private balloting, and that the amount of interest in elections went down.
Interesting.
And there was also a thought that women shouldn't partake in voting because politics was considered a blood sport, and that women weren't up for it, not for that level of kind of partisanship.
Okay.
So
when we punch each other, we don't hurt each other, so we actually have more fun roughhousing than you guys.
So then the segue with the teams is the same thing, that it's kind of a blood sport. Obviously, there's a lot of violence involved in sports, whether it be hockey or football. Some less violent. So that
was my tie-in. Yeah, and
Yeah.
what we were talking about politics and its
Sure.
kind of relationship to sports,
Absolutely.
the team nature of things.
yes.
No, I like what you said, Jerry. I thought that was interesting, and
Yeah,
I hadn't
I did
heard
too.
that before.
Nor I.
Not until today. And of course, my best stories always come from NPR, so I should give credit.
It
But-
kind of explains some of the attitudes that I've read about that were in the past towards voting. Like, oh, okay, this is why they had these attitudes. Okay, but I wanted, before we went another round,
Sure.
I wanted to respond to your topic, Steve,
Sure.
and just say that I wanted to go last because my attitude is always kind of far distant from the mainstream attitude, and it is here as well. And I think that there's good and bad to be gotten out of sports, as most things.
Of course.
And there's a lot of whining and concerned people all the time about everything, and I find all of it tiresome because I feel that if you are on your own track in life and you're just trying to learn and have an interesting life, it's just another thing.
Sure.
And you can partake and get good things.
Sure.
And I could give you an example. One of my sons was always very tense, and he had a problem with being tense. And I knew it, and I tried various things to help him, but it was always kind of a problem. And then he started doing a certain sport that was kind of a group thing, and he got over it because he physically got it out of himself. In a way that he wasn't able to do anything. And I used to hike him and walk him and exercise him all the time. I had a wrestling mat on my living room floor
Sure.
for a time, and my boys would play Mortal Kombat video game and then stop playing the game and then act it out on the wrestling mat. And I had all the neighborhood kids trained as referees, and people would take turns wrestling, and everybody loved to come over, and I am very much pro sports and physical activity and
Yes.
kinetic movement and living in your body. I'm
Yes.
very much for it, but at the same time, there's these weird team elements that come in, and suppression and repression and blah 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 and bullying. But like anything else, you build yourself strong. Have, like in sports, have a strong core. The strong core of body, strong core of mind, and you go forward, get what you can out of it. Should you sit on your butt and watch football all weekend long? Well, I think if you do, you can probably conclude that whatever you're doing for your week,
Mm-hmm.
to balance, you're doing that, and there's something wrong with what you're doing all week. Can you get out of it? Gosh, that's a problem.
Well, a couple things. First of all, your anecdotal example, I think, is a good one. And I hope I didn't give anyone the impression that sports doesn't have anything good to offer. Because I think if we can take some of the energy of young people, or maybe the testosterone level of men that are somewhat out of control, if they can redirect that toward watching a sport instead of actually tackling innocent people, those are good things. So my argument is not that sports has no value. I'm wondering, it's like anything else that, you have this pie and there are so many pieces of time that you can use in your life. And I'm just wondering if perhaps too many people expend too much time on sports. And you mentioned about activity. I'm actually not talking about being in a sport yourself and getting the exercise and the physicalness of that and staying in shape. I'm talking about the passive sports fanatic. I guess I should have been a little bit more specific. So, at that note,
It sounds like maybe you're trying to parse what you maybe see as a disproportionate relationship between the amount of attention and, let's say, individual attention and media attention that's paid to sports and its benefit
yes,
collectively, maybe.
yes.
Well, there certainly is a lot of time, attention, and money spent on sports in America. It's a
Oh,
it's a
gosh.
multi-million, it's a billions of dollars, I guess. If you want to take a look at all the major sports together, it's billions of dollars that are being consumed in that marketplace. I had a distaste for team sports as I was coming up, probably because of the sports culture.
Oh, yes.
You get it in middle school and high school. The emphasis is on the jocks and their place in the school, and just the wrong emphasis in so many cultural ways that are kind of sometimes hard to define. But I think we all kind of know what we're talking about when we talk about
Exactly.
the sports mentality, the jocular mentality that begins in the high school kind of setting, which put me off.
Yeah.
Put me way off. And I'm one who's gone towards individual sports.
Me too.
I'm a very physical person. I still engage in physical sports. And individual sports is where I put most of my energies.
So, I'm looking at you, and you're obviously very fit. You know,
Mhm.
you're probably more fit than most of the jocks in your high school are now.
Probably.
So I want to, and Steve is kind of going along with you, and so I want to ask you guys: is it just your nature that you aren't group think people and you just rebel? It's just part of your nature.
There is something about the team rah-rah mentality that Steve mentioned earlier that tends not to sit very well with folks who end up where we end up on a lot of issues
I
and
am
thinking.
not just a misfit.
Yeah, exactly.
But actually, Jerry hit on something that I wanted to mention, which was that individual sports thing, and certainly people who engage in those things, climbing the face of a sheer rock formation, those people certainly are no less fit or brave or have
Of course.
no less strength of will than any person playing an adversarial team sport, for sure.
right.
Think about a
Exactly.
sport like orienteering, where these people run cross country
Sure.
with a map and a compass,
Yes,
not
yes.
knowing where they're going, and that sounds crazy, but that's a sport that I think is very interesting. Those guys are out there not knowing where they're going, and they're just going, using their wits and the tools they have available to get where they're going. That's
Eric, I can't let something you said go by, because I am a rock climber, and that's one of the reasons why I'm fit, because that's something I've been doing for over 20
You
years.
can't haul a fat ass up a mountain.
You cannot haul fat ass up a mountain. and I do it with my son, who's a very, very much a rock hound and has done big walls in Yosemite and whatnot. And so we share that together. It's very much a family thing that we do. But so, okay, that said, I really disliked the team sport mentality as I was coming up. And the only reason now that I can enjoy a college football game is because of the influence of my wife. And this is how she helped me out in a way,
Sure.
so
That's
that I
great.
didn't feel so strange in my own culture, because it's such a big part of our culture, is that she looks upon sport as entertainment, See it as entertainment. See it as the theater it is. And I took another look at it, and I'm able now to enjoy football and enjoy basketball more so. It simply, as I see it, as an entertainment process, a catharsis. You know, it's part of the whole catharsis thing.
Well,
a little bit of theater.
Think about the pageantry and all the ceremony that's involved with
and traditions.
Yeah, with all of that, that's separate from the competition.
Sure.
With the not only the band and all the cheerleaders and the presentation of the team to the audience and all of that stuff. Preparation, tailgating for the big game and all of that. There's quite a lot of the elements that people find in things like religion or whatever are mirrored very closely in the ceremonial stuff that goes on around the procedures that take place around preparing and playing sports.
Oh, yeah.
Well, very interesting. I'm wondering if we could just kind of pretend if sports did not exist starting tomorrow morning. What in your mind do you think are some of the good things that would come from there not being sports? Now, when I'm talking sports, and we have parsed this a little bit, we're talking this team-oriented, rah-rah kind of sports, those kinds of sports. Whether we're going to get more positive from it or negative from it.
Well, the thing with sports is you do it with someone else. You watch with someone else, right? I'm not at all
Typically.
interested in watching sports, but I've seen a couple pro basketball games lately, and my son told me, when you go, cheer your head off, pick a team, and scream like crazy. So that's what I did, and I had a blast. And so that's what you would be missing. I think even if you watch at home, you guys tell me, but your friends come over and you go, ah! Right? That's what, something else would have to be invented so you can all get together and get that collective energy.
Yeah, you have to have something.
Tribal energy.
You have to have some buy-in. You have to have some investment, and whatever that is, whatever your team is, or whatever. If it weren't sports, whatever the other thing is that you have the buy-in on.
Yeah.
It's a similar sort of dynamic, I think.
Well, I would propose that even positive energy can be difficult to handle. Like you don't know what to do with all the energy that you have. And I've been noticing that lately. Like, I'll be filled with happiness, but what do I do with this much happiness? I don't know. It's not just rage that can spill over. It's happiness too. How do you deal with it? So we'd be doing some other nutty thing where we all get together and go, ah!
Which gets back to a point that Steve mentioned a little bit earlier.
Yes.
We are very, very close to our tribal roots.
Indeed.
We're not far removed from that at all.
Right.
And so, I think one of the reasons why sports are so popular as they are is because of that tribal element. And this is actually kind of a safe way of venting a lot of energy and in regards to that whole notion, without it spilling over into politics and in the real world.
Yeah.
It's a safety valve.
Yes.
It's a safety valve.
Yes, we don't want it to be part of the real world. Kill the other guy on the other team. We used to play kill the guy with the ball when I was a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't want to actually go kill someone.
Well, so in a way
yes,
that argues,
of course,
that it's a good thing to have in our society because it gets that out.
Yes.
It gets that animalistic.
Yeah, but I'd like to hear, Steve, what you'd rather see.
Well, I agree with matter of fact, I don't disagree with what anyone has said. I'm just concerned about the imbalance. For example, if 80% of what's televised on TV in sports happens to be football and basketball and baseball and those team sports that I happen not to like. All I'm asking for is chess matches, perhaps having colleges with science quizzes and
Yeah, quiz bowl.
yeah, quiz
Yeah.
bowl. You know, just some sort of balance. I understand the importance of that sport thing. I don't want to diminish it, but all I'm asking for is just, throw me a bone. Give me just a little intellectual stimulation. Does that make
Passion
any
with some
sense?
intellect.
Well, maybe if science fairs had cheerleaders.
Whoa!
There you go.
Well, as a nerd, I'm on and a trivia nerd at that. I'm on board with what you're talking about. That
I used to
sounds
joke
very appealing.
to my kids when they were in high school, because my kids all played soccer and I was involved very much with soccer. And I would say the coach of the soccer and the drama coach will get in there and scream at you, "Why weren't you at practice today?
Yes.
What happened?" Da, 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 and just force you to care and insist you come out. And no other class does that. The science teacher, the math teacher never says, "You didn't do your math homework, Eric!" Oh, and the entire class does not go, "Eric, you let us down. You didn't do your math."
But do they carry you around the room on their shoulders when you get an A on your test? That's what I want to know.
Well, now, if I
Exactly.
was a teacher, I'm the type of idiot that I would probably want to do that, and I would just get in trouble, and I'd get fired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can't you
Much
picture me doing that?
enthusiasm.
Because I can.
Sure.
Completely. We'd have math champion of the day.
Well, that's another thing that you brought up about how we tend to put so much pressure, perhaps more fathers with their sons, but I don't want to just say just that. I'm sure it's with children, girls as well, but it just seems like there's so much pressure. As an example, football practice for the coming season in high school starts in June. I mean, and yes,
June now?
Oh gosh, yes. And they're practicing in the heat. It just seems like we have really put a lot of pressure on some of our
I
young
think
men and
They're
and
cheating if they're starting in June, because based on my experience, which is now somewhat old,
okay.
how old is it? 6 years old. The school system had rules. You were not allowed to begin practicing for fall sports until a certain date, and that day, immediately, everybody'd be out there practicing.
Oh,
Right,
and I would
right.
know, because the marching band in the field, right, you can see from my window, and I would hear them trumpeting and
But the way that's
Oh,
gotten around now is that there are basketball camps and football
Yes.
camps
yeah.
where people go to train and whatnot, and
Hone their skills.
hone their skills. And the thing is this starts earlier and earlier. This
Yes.
is an added dimension, and this is where I can begin to really agree with Steve that back in the day, and I'm older, we would go and play baseball for pickup games.
Of
you know,
course,
and
it
you'd have
was
pickup
wonderful.
football games, pickup baseball games.
Sure.
But today,
Oh,
oh
yeah.
my gosh, you're regimented as a kid in your sports programming.
Absolutely.
You got your little league, and you've got your camps, and you've got your this and your that, and there's an awful lot of pressure on these
Stop
kids.
wringing your hands, gentlemen. It'll be okay.
Well, I don't know. It's a different kind of
Yeah, but don't. This is
Focus.
also true of like spelling bee champions and science fair project nerds. People will become too obsessed and try to be the best. And I think it's a mistake to try and be the best, because you burn that circuit out, whatever that circuit is. You really do.
But
And
isn't that really one
keep
of
it
the
fun.
focal points of sports, is winning and being number one?
At some point, you're absolutely right, Steve. At some point, you have to go separate yourself from that team and go, okay, this is not in my best interests. And that is a good lesson to learn. And I did have a kid who had, stress fracture on his foot because he was playing soccer year round. And it was not me pushing him. It was his choice because he loved it that much.
Sure.
But then he reevaluated. And adolescence is a good time to just chase after a passion with all your heart. And I never, I had all these all-city scholars and all-city athletes. I never made them do any of that. They did it because they wanted, and they still play.
Well, if I may make an analogy, more feminine oriented, not that women aren't great at sports, but you notice these pageants, these beauty pageants that girls that are 3 and 4 and 5 years old, and the mom's getting them all dressed up in this, what I think is sexually almost provocative in the way they look. And I'm no prude, but there's an obsession with that as well, and it's winning at all costs. And I just, are children more resilient than we give them credit for? Laura, you're right. And at the end of the day, is everything going to be okay? Yeah, but I think we have to check ourselves, and we have to make sure how far we go with our obsessions, because I think it can be very negative.
Oh,
Well, maybe we should think about wrapping up, having some final thoughts on this, and then also talk about what our next program is. So, Laura, do you have any final thoughts about our topic about sports today?
Oh, I want to drop an earth-shaking statement to wind it up. Do I have one? Well, I think Steve recapped it very nicely.
It was good points.
Go after something and enjoy your passion, but if you see it's burning you up, then just stop. Drop it, walk away. Simple as that. Can you do it? It's difficult. It's emotional.
Yes, right.
And it might be physical, but that's the way to live. And once you learn that lesson, you realize that letting go of things that you were, for a time, absolutely enthralled with, you can let go of them, and it won't kill you.
Right.
You can
That's
do
good.
something else.
Now, from a parental point of view, I think it's good to support your kids' interests.
Of course.
And if it's in team sports, go for it. Support them. Send them to the camps if that's really the direction that they want to go in. But if they have individualistic expressions that they want to develop their chess game. They want to go off and do individual sports. They want to
Yes.
go off and have an activity, like juggling
Sure.
or some other activity type of thing
Yeah.
that they want to spend their time on and hone. You can support that too. And I don't think that parents should push their kids into the team sports. That I don't like. That for their own gratifications, their own purposes, so that they can root. I think kids should be able to develop whatever it is they want to develop.
I wanted to ask Steve a question before Eric speaks, or before we finish, and that is, Steve, you want to pull yourself out of these group experiences, and you're very, outside looking in,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm wondering if don't you miss that, or do you not trust yourself to get in a tribe and scream all together?
I don't think it's a
What's
trust.
wrong with you, Steve?
Yeah, well, I don't know that we have enough time. We would need probably a whole plethora of episodes just to scratch the surface. But to just make a quick statement, I think my meditation has made a big difference. And one of the things that I learned as a Zen Buddhist is to look at things as you are the projector, and basically all you're doing is viewing this that's going on. And the advantage of being an observer is you're not attached to whatever you're seeing. So you can take a very objective view on most anything. And so that's kind of been my practice. So the practice of meditation and the, that whole kind of thought process is probably why, I take that view. To recap on back to the sport thing, I can't really disagree with anything anyone said, unfortunately. This is Polemic Pool. I'm supposed to argue, but everybody made very good points, and really appreciate Eric joining us tonight, and maybe you can finish off with your last thoughts.
Sure. What I guess though, what I would leave us with would be the idea of sort of maybe picking up where Laura left off. Take what's valuable from it. Don't get so invested that you lose yourself, and that goes with sports or any other thing. You know, there are things that are valuable to be gained from that. You know, life lessons. If there are things you can connect to other parts of your life or things that you can take forward that are going to help you, then take that with you and leave the rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Steve's Buddhist point of view, and I'm thinking that if you really attain some type of true spiritual understanding, you'll kind of have that sports mentality all the time because you'll be on Team Human.
There you go.
No, I will give you this, Steve. I think our society, our culture, is a little bit out of balance. I think we have a little too much emphasis on group sport.
Yes.
And that can be detrimental because it misses other aspects of our culture which could and should deserve more attention.
Absolutely.
Well, at least that's my opinion.
Well, what's the subject for next time? Who's got it, and
Well,
what's it about?
I guess it's my turn to pick a topic, and I've been thinking about the state of democracy. Of course, we've gone through our midterm elections now. In fact, we're meeting here on Election Day, and I don't want to talk about partisanship, about Democrat versus Republican. But I want to talk about the nature of democracy. Does it have a future? Does it have a future here in the United States? Does it have a future in the world at large? I think we can take on both aspects, and I'd like to talk about the future of democracy next time around on Polemic Pool.
Sounds good to me.
Again, thank you, Eric, for
it.
joining us tonight.
Yes, thanks for coming, Eric, and
appreciate
it
the
was fun.
opportunity.
I
And
enjoyed
Steve
it.
and Jerry, it's great to see you guys. Cheers.
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 Cheers to everyone out there, too.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Touchdown.
Night. That was good.